Welcome. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Be Clay here on Be Clay Podcast. We are learning how to just do that, just to be clay. We're on the journey to continue to learn. This is not a journey that stops. This is a continuous journey as you learn how to be clay and just be molded. So, we are in August, you guys. Today is August the 2nd. And, this is crazy because 2026 is moving. And, I have a lot to do this month. With me still trying to finish my schooling as well as getting ready for my children to go back to school. This is a lot. And there's a lot. But I'm telling you, I told you in the last episode that I'm in a place where we just trust in God. You either going to trust him or don't. And that's exactly where I'm at. There's a lot. There's a mountain so big, with dealing with 3 tuitions and, and we will be driving down to each area that the time it's going to take to do that. Come back and you have to still but the other 3 who will be, they still in their, high school, right? Because all my kids are now, the rest of them are in high school. And so, and the beginnings, but I'm just trusting in God because all that I have needed, thy hands has provided. Okay? Everything that I have needed, he has always provided. He is my Abba. He is my source. And so you either trust him or you don't. No ifs, ands, and buts about it. You either trust him or you don't. This is where I am right now. I'm trying to tell you, this is where I am, you guys. This is where I live. I've been walking around here like, yeah, it's a lot, but I'm either going to trust you or I don't. That's it. So, with all that being said, hi, how are you doing? How are you guys doing today? So we are going to pick up where we left off. And we left off basically, if we want to have a little time frame of where I left off, was basically March. Because it was about March, beginning of April. More so, March, where I began to say, you know what, Elisa, just, embrace it. And that was March. That was right after, because here, I wasn't even working I was working around the clock before, but then since I had my accident in the end of February, I wasn't even doing Lyft anymore or anything like that. So, I was at a standstill. And I literally, especially after my accident, I got T-boned. So my whole equilibrium and everything was really actually off. And it made me actually sit down, and all these thoughts and all these this is why it came more into the forefront of my inner conversations and everything else, because before I worked three, if you want to count Lyft, 4 jobs, right? So I barely slept, drank coffee, espresso shots all the time, just to, whatever. And so now that since the accident, I wasn't doing Lyft. I wasn't doing Lyft. I just was working, my 3 jobs, the taxes, my other 2 jobs. And then I just came home and, and that's what everything was right here. So this is why it was even more to the forefront of what I really believed in myself, because now the conversations was louder. I wasn't drowning these voices with work. So now we're in March, and I explained to you in a stand. So I hope that we if we have taken the time or and still taking the time to actually write down those things that we speak of ourselves and think of ourselves. And because, again, like I said, it was affecting my babies. Yeah, I knew my babies were struggling with some things. To say the least, on some there was something that we were dealing with as a family, which that would be a whole nother series, okay, of episodes. When I'm not sure when I'm gonna be ready to put all that out. But with all that being said, and so one of the things, again, like, okay, so being as though that I'm here, this is what, I'm 38 now. So, right, 38. So being still at 38 at this time frame, and I told you I didn't want to walk into 38, and everything else, but I was serious about that. But now we're dealing with these, and these voices are loud. I really, really strongly did not want my children to be in their 30s and their 20s dealing with the stuff that I'm dealing with now, because it was even more evident of how much this has become a part of my life, and the decisions and the choices I've made, who I entertained, the friendships and the relationships and things, all of these decisions, all of that. This right here, this me feeling unworthy, and this me feeling this. I don't like that, and I didn't want my kids to feel that. And so I had my children say, "Listen, we got to deal with these things." Now, mind you, we were going to a retreat this April, and that April. And so my son came to me and was like, "Oh, Mom, like, I want to really, like, get this house to a place so that when we go up there to the mountains for our retreat, that we leave everything at the mountains and then we come back like refreshed in the house." Now, and this is my younger son saying this to me. Now, I was thinking it for myself, and not just for myself, like not for me and the family, but the fact that I had to say it, that he was saying it, was just like amazing. And so I'm like, all right. And then I realized, like, listen, I don't want us, because my pastor also preached about he preached a message about basically the state that we're in and how we stay in a specific state. And like, he really wanted us to begin to really deal with things so that when we go to the mountains, that, like, we don't have to wait until we get to the mountains for God to start dealing with us, that we basically need to do it now. And with that being said, and most, the majority of the children, like I said, like, all my children go to church except for one. And so they all were there. And I had a meeting with them, and I said, "Listen, you guys, we gotta deal with things now. We can't wait till we get there. We gotta deal with stuff now." And so let's write a letter, right? To release these things now, so that when we get there, that, we're coming there with, a little lighter. Like, we don't want to, not saying we're not going to be heavy, but just, lighter for him to do what he do, whatever he do, and then us when we come back home, back to the valley. So they wrote a letter releasing some things. When they wrote a letter releasing these things have, like, it broke me. When they wrote the letter and they read the letter, it broke me. This is why, again, like I'm saying, like, I knew my children were hurting, but I began to see even more how much they're hurting. And again, like, I really was very adamant, like, and and I'm still am. Like, I think my children right now, to this day, are tired of me saying, but I'm going to keep saying it. Because the longer that you hold on to things, the harder it is, right? The harder it is. If I'm 40 and I got 40 years worth of stuff, I don't need my kids to be 40 and got 40 years worth of stuff. I want them to be at the ages they are now, dealing with how many years they are now, and they keep moving and to be on a clean slate. So if once they get to 22 and 19 and 17 and 15, that whatever they deal with at 15 and it was 17, 22 and 18, 19, they'll deal with that. They're not dealing with 19 and under, they'll deal with whatever they need to deal with at 19. They deal with what they need to do in 20 and so on. Because this is hard. It's harder when you have to go back. I talk to a lot of us, who are listening to me, who knows me. And I talk to a lot of us who are around my age, and we be sitting there like we all in therapy talking about, so when I was 5, mind you, we're like 40, 45, 50, talking about when I was 5, Oh, God. And mind you, the older you are, the harder it is to go back to 5, to that 5-year-old self. Talk about something when I was 5 and trying to deal with that 5-year-old little girl, little boy, and how that's affecting you at 40, 50, 55, 44, however old we are, right? And so I literally was like, listen, it's not just me and mommy, dealing, because they've been knowing from up until now that mommy's really been working on herself. They have even seen the difference in their mother from where she was when she first started and where she is right now. And so it's like, listen, I'm telling you, we need to deal with things now. You need to deal with it now. Don't keep holding on. Don't be like, oh my God, it is how I feel, and I'm just gonna keep moving. No. How do you feel? What is it? Are you angry? Why are you angry? I really, literally was serious about this thing. Who you need to talk to? Let's find about it. Let's find therapy. Let's figure this out now. Because you don't want to be like mommy in this way. And so now the letters that they written to was to parents, because let me tell you something right now. Now, I'm not that type of parent that just assume that my kids love me and just like, and I'm not saying that they walk around hating. What I'm saying is, like, they don't have no issues. They're not angry at mommy I'm not that type of parent, because I know growing up, and I know I'm not the only one who grew up angry at their parents. And one of the biggest things that I had to deal with as now in therapy and things like that, is the anger that I have held on for my parents for years. And it has really, it's just done a lot for me, even as trying to parent. In some cases of me trying not to do the same things that I felt like my parents should have not done, whatever case may be. There are times when I overdid things, like, when it comes to raising my children. And so this is why I also was like, listen, I don't care what you feel about your mama, let her know. Like, you gotta deal with it today. I'm just not gonna sit up here and assume that you don't. I was then, which I realized later, because I didn't feel like I was a good mother anyway. And to be honest with you, I wasn't keeping that quiet. I would walk around and say, I'm not a good mama, like, whatever. Now, I learned later, this is why I learned later that this really was detrimental to my children. But again, we don't know if we don't have those conversations with stuff. Now, I'm able to have these conversations with my children. I'm able to do this with my children because I've started doing the work in myself first. And which made it easier. I think as far as me growing up, and this is no like shade against my own parents, but they didn't learn these lessons that I'm learning. I don't think they didn't learn these lessons of how to really heal first. Like we didn't learn how to heal first before having kids. Now, to some instances, kids came when, not necessarily we planned them to come, obviously, necessarily. I'm not going to get into whether I was planned or my sisters was planned and blah, blah, blah. That because right now we're not there. But just because you didn't heal first before you actually got into a relationship and then had children, somewhere down the line, once you realize how unhealed you are, that you could have, learned how to heal. And now I'm not, like I said, it's not a shade or throwing at my parents, but this is something that I realized that, they did not do. They did not heal first before having us. They did not heal first before they got together to make me and my sisters. They did not heal while even in the instances of raising us. And so I had to do differently. I cannot control what I inherited. I cannot control what came through my family line that I have, endured because of the cycles and everything else. But what I can do is control from here and the family line from here, the lineage. And I was serious about this. And I was telling my children this. Now, mommy has been working on this healing, and she's been healing, and she's been healing. And I'm telling you to heal. Okay? We are going to heal today. We're going to work on healing today. And we're going to do it in the way that we know that we need to do it, which is through God. And I'm saying because there's a lot of things that we tell ourselves. Like I said, I just had this whole episode last of these lies that I was telling myself that it became my truth. Like I literally was taking these lies and believing it more than even the truth that God himself was trying to, and it was evident that he was portraying in front of my face, but I rather believe the lie than the truth. And to be honest, because that's what I learned. I learned to believe a lie rather than the truth. The truth that is so evident that God, he is the truth. And even what he was saying no, that's not it. This is really what it is, God. Like literally, I was telling him. He was telling me, trying to tell me, this, you're not too much, you're not this is really what's going on. It really wasn't you. It was them. Like, stop taking things that don't belong to you. And I'm like, no, God, this is me. It was me. It was always me. Right? Because I know that you're the one who, I wasn't even mad at him. Like, he created me to be this way. In reality, they should have just, went to him to figure out how to really be the father, be the pastors, be whatever they needed to be for me in my life. So that part was on them, not on me. But I took on that because it just had to be me. And I lived in that because that is my truth. So, and that's what I learned. I learned that absolutely from them, from the people in my life, from the adults in my life, especially those in the church, to believe the lies rather than the truth. Why? Because whatever reasons or things that they had to go through to learn. And if they do, I pray, I really do pray. I'm not, like I said, I'm not throwing no shade at my parents and things like that, but I really do pray, if they're not, that they do, begin to literally write down what I perceive me to be, what others perceive me to be, and what God really perceived me to be, what he really perceived me, who he really said that I am, right? Because we grew up and I really was, dealing with a lot of things like, oh, I'm really shy. But that's who said I was. Now, I said that I was shy. I would say that I was shy. Even at this time, I would say that I was shy. But that's not, God said, you ain't shy. I didn't make you shy. I had to learn that. So we take these things that, these lies and we make them our truth. And we walking in it and we making it, and and we wondering why we feeling like a fraud, because in reality we are a fraud. We are a fraud because that's not who he created us to be. And we only know that once we sit ourselves down, stop with everything we doing to try to drown out the truth. You know, whether using work and people and always going somewhere, always doing something, being so busy, drinking, smoking, getting high, and all these things like that. Sit your tail down and have these real hard conversations with yourself. And it's going to take more than a day. It's going to take some time. And heal. Go to the Father. Allow him to heal you. Whatever you need to do in your therapy, be more honest in your therapy, whatever you need to do, so that you can begin to realize what is the lie, what is just your perception based upon fear, based upon the things you have endured, abandonment and rejection, and that you just conjure up and say, this must be who I am, and this really wasn't who you are. But this is the moment. This is the time. This is where I really had to kind of like, all right, so because they read it, I think like a week or so before we went to the mountains, the letters. But but when I talked about writing the letters, at first they were like, they didn't really want to. Everybody didn't really want to do it. And then I had to explain, like, you have to. You have to. Because if you don't write this letter, if you don't at least have the starting point, it's not just that you're going to walk around and hold this inside every day all day and walk through here, whatever. Because it's already affecting everything that you're doing in school, in your schoolwork. You're walking around, you're angry, you're frustrated. I even had to deal with, behavior issues in school for the younger two, all these different things. And it's because of this right here. You're not releasing this. And we got to release these things. Now, and so I had to fight with that, especially with I was walking around, still feeling like it, like I said, I embraced. At this time, I realized, well, like your mama was just too much. Now I didn't say this to them, but I was embracing that I'm just too much. I just cost too much. That's why people wasn't where I am in my life, but I'm going to do different for my kids, right? And this is when I was just trying to embrace it, like not feel so bad about it. But this is who you are. You just have a high price on you. You just a high value, high maintenance, right? And so, but yeah. So before I get into the other part, so the book that I was talking about that my sister had, the book is called Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents: How to Heal from Distant, Rejecting, or Self-Involved Parents. Now, again, I'm going to let you know that I didn't even get to read the book, which I probably should read it. The title alone was a lot. I skimmed through the book when we was at the mountains. Like we was at the mountains, she showed me the book, and I skimmed through the book, and there were some things that I seen. I didn't, and not just. It just had me all messed up for like at least a month. Again, I'm not throwing no shade against my parents. My parents, I believe, I'm not gonna, it's not saying like I don't believe that they did not do the best that they could. I'm not saying that. But there's things that we do and don't do, decisions that we make as humans, let alone being as parents, that does affect everybody. And not healing, like not taking the time to really heal does not just affect us in our own and everyday life, but affects everybody around us. It affects every single body around us. Even as I'm looking back over these years, these last, well, we in 2025, right? And I told you I made up my mind at the end of 2022. So you're talking about 2020, all of 2023, all of 2024, and now we're in 2025. But in reality, we're actually in 2026, as I'm here in August 2nd, 2026, and looking back at, the process that I have went through from December of 2022 up until now. And as I continue in my healing journey right now, I'm realizing even the more so how it impacted everybody, not just me as a parent, and how it impacted my children, how I raised my children. The years that I have raised them in this unhealed state, how they developed as from each stages of their life, as from baby, from infancy up until now. I have about in 12 days I would have 3 adult children, and how it impacted their lives. Now, granted, I get it. You only, you when you know better, you do better. But it's that right there when the question is, we know that when you know better, you do better. But there was specific times in my life where God has been pulling on me to heal, and I refused. And I'm talking about during my teenage years. He'd been pulling on me to really heal some issues, and I refused. Oh, how different my life would have been had I not refused to heal. So yeah, when you know better, do better. But if we are really honest with ourselves, that we refuse to know better because we understood that if we know better, we'll do better. But at some point, there's times where we actually refuse to know better, because then it'll be expected of us to do better. And at that moment, to be honest with us, if we really was honest with ourselves, we really don't want to do better. There's sometimes in certain points in our lives where we know we should heal, we know we should let go, we know we should forgive, and we refuse not to. But we don't understand that those choices right there didn't just affect us in our life, but affected everyone that's around us. Those that we encounter daily, at school, at work. In the supermarkets, in our daily lives. Our very relationship with God himself, the idea of the relationship with God himself. And so, my sister, she's way older than me. I was, and we was sitting there just like in tears when she read, I was just crying. And I didn't even go to sleep I left her room. I didn't even go to sleep. I just kept crying. Like, I literally was on that floor in the mountains and was just bawling. Went to prayer just bawling. Like, just crying and crying and crying and crying. Um, because it really hit the because to be honest, I really didn't have a childhood for real, you know. And I was just like, why, you know? I don't even know how to be a daughter. Um, I've been in this leadership role for a very long time. I don't even know how not to be that, but I need to do that in order to even be the mother that I need to be for my kids. There's just a lot of stuff that hit at one time. I can't really go into everything that hit, and this is not necessarily to. It wasn't necessary to like, oh my God, my parents was immature, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't even that. It was really dealing with the stuff that I need to deal with because I don't need to be a mature parent to my children that I'm raising as we speak. Well, and as we spoke at that day. So I was bawling in tears to be distant, to be rejected, that abandonment. And I cried for even my parents at that moment too. Because my dad abandoned us because he was abandoned. You know? And so the best way for you to not continue the cycle is to heal. Like literally heal. We say we don't want to be like our parents and things like that. And we become our parents because we don't heal. That is one thing that our parents did not do. They did not heal. And instead of like, well, I'm never leaving my man, and you just walking around here angry, you are basically becoming naive and not paying attention to that's an absolute trap of becoming your parent, but worse than your parent. Because you didn't even take the time to understand exactly what does it mean to be like your parent so that you won't be like that parent. And so I now again, like I didn't see myself as a strong one. I didn't. I know that I have been put in a position as a strong one, but I didn't see myself as the strong one. Right? But I was so exhausted of being in that position of a strong one, of being in that position of that, and I just was like, I'm tired, God. I'm so tired. I'm so tired. This is this is at the mountains. So leading up to the mountains was all right, kids, let's go. Like we and I really know I needed God to do something because I was tired, and I wanted to. I'm not saying I was at a standstill in my healing journey, but like I felt like there was a wall that I have hit in this healing journey. Up until then, and I understood, and I was on the outside, and I just wanted to be just rest in his presence enough to just like whatever. And I know I couldn't get there because this right here is hindering me to get there. And I could understand why. Like, God, I understand that that I'm not worthy enough, but for them. But but why I'm still feel like I'm feeling hitting the wall. And this is why that I was hitting this wall. So this book, again, I never read the book. It was just a title in itself. And we just start talking about the different things. And I started talking about the different things, like, with the distance. Like, even though my mother was in church, it was, for the most part, to be honest with y'all, I felt like we were distant. Like, we're close but distant. That makes any sense. There are things that I really could not really express to her because I felt like she just wouldn't understand. And as far as my father, we already know he was distant. You know what I mean? We barely talked, even as an adult now, up until the year before here when I tried to really go into stuff about where I was and where I stand and this and the other. I have very unsuccessful attempts. And so and again, like I said, I already feel like I'm too lucky because one thing I'm about truth. Like the truth, right? It's like, how can you heal off a lie, right? And I get it, because as much as I'm up here trying to take this lie and run with it, God was like, Elisa, I refuse to allow you to do so, you know? So he kept allowing things to happen. So if he is that for me, I just can't do that when it comes to other people. I try. I try because people don't like the truth, but I can't. I tried. I did. I tried to just like, well, that's what they say. I'm just going to believe it because that's what they believe. And I couldn't do it. So, and here is where you have to understand the impact of not healing and what it does for not just for you, like you like really pay attention and take an account of how much it has really affected, impacted your very life up until this day of choosing not to heal. And make a decision whether you want to stay here or you want to move from here. This is where I was. This is where I was when I was really learning. It was this. After having my children, like I did, like that was it. Oh no, we got to continue on healing because it's affecting my babies, like even the more so. Like you remember, at least, like you were depressed for most of the year, so you raised them in this depression. So when they start something and don't finish, and like I really was understanding, like seeing even, and there's layers to this thing, and that was even layers of seeing the impact of my decisions of not to heal and how it was affecting my babies. Yeah. So from the time that they read, and they, like I said, they read the letters just right before we went to the mountains, I was all messed up because I understood the impact of what happens when you don't heal. And I was like, I had, not that I wasn't, and I did a tremendous, like I jumped hoops through healing. But again, like I said, it was now realizing like, wow, this is what happens when you don't heal. This is what your babies was dealing with. And it wasn't even everything, right? There's a lot of things that they didn't say that they didn't write on that paper. And that was the thing. And that was really what hit me, because this is what they wrote on this paper, whether they're not writing on the paper. What is they're in the conversation with themselves. And then I see this book about emotion. I said, God, I don't want to be like this I don't want to be like that for my babies. I don't want to be distant from them. I don't want to reject them. So I need to do something. I need to fix this. I need to fix this. I need to fix this. And that's where we are. This is where we are. That's where we were at that moment. I need to fix this, God. I need to fix this. And that's I can't stay here. So we gotta figure this out. And that's exactly where I was. God, we gotta figure this out. And so This is maybe deep. This is whatever. This is deep. But again, you talking about healing. You got to be willing to get to hit them real hard truths and having them hard conversations with yourself. Because at the end of the day, you are I'm gonna ask these questions. I'm gonna end this podcast with this question. And I think I said this beforehand. I don't remember, but so I said this and I'm asking these questions. If you heal, what would it do for you? What would it do for your family or your community? And what would it do for the world? And then ask yourself, if you don't heal, what would it do for you? What would it do for like your family and your local community? And what would it do for the world? Ask yourself that question. Answer that question. Don't just be like, I don't know. I don't know is not a definite answer. If you really don't know, really sit yourself and figure it out to turn that I don't know to something else. What do you think will happen? How do you think it would impact you, the world, your local community? What do you think? And until next time, know I do love you, girl. I love y'all. I do love you. But you are loved. You are loved. You're loved. Not just a little, but greatly. Not just today, but forever. And not just by some, but by the one who created you in his absolute love. And he's not the only one that loves you. We love you unconditionally. And there's nothing, absolutely nothing that you can do to change that. Until next time. You are the potter, so I will be glad. Be